Hello and welcome back to What the Math. This is Anton, and today we're going to be talking about Sheridan tank and its participation in the invasion of Panama. Now we're going to be talking about various facts and various interesting tidbits of the invasion and also try to recreate it using Red Dragon. Now this is going to be a slightly overpowered and very easy mission, so don't expect a lot of interesting gameplay elements here, but this will be mostly used as a kind of an informative piece to teach you more about the invasion of Panama that occurred in December of '89 and January of '90. So first we're going to create a completely new deck for this mission. This is going to be US forces, and the US forces here actually had some really cool units that they used for this mission. So first of all, let's actually go into tanks. And we obviously are going to add the M551 Sheridan. We're going to add one unit because, well, this will give us 16 tanks. The US actually had only 14 tanks, and 2 of them were unfortunately destroyed during the air landing. So that's our tanks here. Just to make this a little bit more fair, we're not going to give us any sort of intelligence units, even though they probably had quite a lot of intelligence units. But what we will be getting is the incredible AH-64 Apache helicopters. This is actually the first mission where this helicopter participated in, and this was a modern sort of creation, a modern attack helicopter that was capable of destroying both tanks and any kind of enemy ground targets, and it was actually quite overpowered for this mission, but I guess for US this was basically a way to test this helicopter, so we're going to give ourselves one hardened unit that will allow us to use 2 helicopters. This was also the first time that the American F-117 stealth fighter was actually in combat as well, and unfortunately in this game we don't have these stealth fighters, but we have the other plane that participated in here, and the other plane was EF-111 Raven, which was actually used for not only attacking targets, but was also used to jam radars on the ground. So this was actually a very important plane because it jammed the Panamanian radar, preventing them from seeing what was going on the ground and in the skies. And US also used quite a lot of infantry, quite a lot of Marines, and quite a lot of paratroopers as well. So we're going to give ourselves maybe one of each of these units. And some of these units will obviously be using the Humvees, which were deployed in this mission as well. And here comes the unfortunate PDF forces, which also stands for Panama Defense. Panama Defense Forces were basically the defenders here. There were only about 16,000 of them against the invasion force of 27,000. So I kind of already given them more than they should have. But basically here, they only kind of had infantry. There were no tanks, there were no vehicles, no helicopters. The Soviet forces that actually were kind of helping them were only there as advisors. And there were also advisors from countries like Cuba and Libya as well, and this is why I've given them sort of a multicultural forces here, but they don't really have much in terms of anything. They do have a little bit of anti-tank weapons, and they do have, I believe, there we go, they have the flamethrower crew right here, but other than that, that's it. So let's see how they do against us. We've given them, we should probably give them a little bit more resources at least so that they can kind of protect themselves, but other than that, they'll have nothing. And so this is the beginning of the so-called Operation Just Cause, the United States invasion of Panama. Now this, like I said before, occurred in December of 1989 and lasted until late January of 1990, so it was only just over a month long. And while I'm finishing deploying my forces, let me just talk a little bit behind the reasons for this invasion. So originally, the person who was controlling Panama Canal, whose name was Manuel Noriega, was actually a CIA informant, and he was kind of friendly with the US, and he, as a matter of fact, he got a lot of his money, a lot of his funds from the US. And these are our beautiful Sheridan tanks ready to roll. And so originally, he was basically on the US payroll, but unfortunately he was a very corrupt person. He was taking money from a lot of other people, including the drug cartels, and let's launch our Humvees as well. And he was basically getting into trouble from the US for, you know, being essentially a drug dealer who US was very unfortunate to support. And so the George W. Bush, the father, of course, was actually asked to ask Noriega to step down. And there was a lot of trouble doing that because obviously he's not going to try to give away his power. And as a result of this, there was a failed coup d'etat where some of the forces in Panama decided they were going to invade Noriega's residence and try to take him down, but that didn't work well, unfortunately, and so Noriega stayed in power. And so what happened afterwards was that the U.S. forces that were stationed in Panama, and there's actually something like 35,000 U.S. citizens living in Panama, were unfortunately detained by one of the Panamanian forces, and 2 of them were actually killed, and 2 of them were tortured, that, along with the fact that Noriega was a drug dealer, really sort of pushed the U.S. to the point where, oh, look at our Sheridans go. Look at them go. They're destroying things already. Basically caused the U.S. to kind of start planning the invasion. And the last drop was, of course, the attack of the U.S. Personnel that, according to the U.S., was actually unarmed, but the Panamanian forces claim that they did have weapons. But really the last drop was not even that. The last drop was the fact that Noriega actually started to switch sides and decided that he was going to come close to the Soviet Union, and as a matter of fact he was planning to switch to the Soviet side from the American side, and this is really why the US decided to finally invade and basically take him down. And the main reason for the invasion was, of course, the fact... Oh, here come the... Look at those guided missiles. Look at them doing all this damage. The main reason for why US needed Panama was because Panama Canal was very important, and still is very important for US economy. I think I just lost something. I lost a truck. I lost my Humvee. No! Look at this huge battle. The invasion has begun. And... because the U.S. needs the canal, because a canal is very important for U.S. economy, and because technically it was actually built by the U.S., at least I believe it was mostly built by the U.S., having Panama Canal was very, very important. But having a dictator like Noriega in power and the fact that he was about to start supporting the Soviet forces really made US panic, and so they actually started the invasion, which according to US was mostly justified as the fact that they were protecting the 35,000 US citizens living there, but in reality it was more economic and more regional than anything else. Now let's wait for our Apache helicopters. This is their first engagement. Bring in the Apache. Attach Apache to the destructive power of the US Army forces here. This is actually a very, very powerful helicopter. If you don't really know much about them, they are probably one of the more capable attack helicopters in the world. Although I'm sure Russians would disagree with that, but they are very, very powerful. There you go. Look at them go. They're going to destroy this entire force, hopefully. Or not. We'll see how it goes. And so the US decided to invade, and they basically had a lot of the operations around Panama before the invasion, where they had some practice games and basically tried to have Panamanian forces, or try to provoke Panamanian forces into attacking them so that they wouldn't have to declare war illegally. But at the end, because of that attack on 4 US personnel, the actual attack was not actually seen as illegal anymore because US was just trying to protect their own citizens. And so on the day of the invasion, they're basically attacked from 2 sides. There was the airborne attack, there was the marine attack, and these particular tanks were used as part of the air forces, as part of the air attack. They actually were transported via airplanes and also via boats, but the 2 tanks that were dropped from the airplanes were unfortunately destroyed. Now we're going to bring our Raven as well. I want to actually try... I've never really tried this craft in this game, but let's bring it to the battle. Alright, here comes our Raven. So this is the aircraft that was used for jamming the raiders, but also for attacks as well. It's a pretty cool aircraft, actually. I kind of wish we had the F-117s here, the stealth fighters, but unfortunately we don't. And there's nothing here. There's nothing here for us to attack. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Attack those BTRs. I don't know if we lost a lot of forces yet, but it looks like we may have actually not lost anyone. Or no, there we go. There's that's the signal for someone's under attack. Okay, he's not doing so well. This airplane is not doing so well. Let's try to attack manually. Can you actually do anything, please? Thank you. It'd be really nice if you attacked someone and not just fly around pointlessly. He's about to run out of fuel, isn't he? All right, so my Apaches are out of everything actually, and look at them go. They're in the middle of the battle. I'm going to switch from this silly airplane to my Apaches. They're like literally in the middle of the battle, and they don't care because it's Apache. And they're obviously not damaged at all, but they're out of ammo, unfortunately. And so my Sheridans. I have to bring Sheridans back because they have no more ammo left, and they've been doing quite well in this particular battle. Now, it looks like we're going to be easily winning this battle, but before we actually win this, I wanted to talk a little bit about the capture of the dictator. So it was actually a pretty interesting story. So when Manuel Noriega found out that he was about to be deposed and that the US was invading, and that, you know, that he was probably not going to win this battle, as you can see, there's just too many forces attacking him. He decided to, well, he actually plead for the Holy See, which is the Vatican, to basically, or he actually used their embassy called Apostolic Nunciature to essentially stay in there and to use it as a kind of a sanctuary. So he actually, you know, he returned all the weapons, he basically gave everything away, and he stayed inside the Vatican embassy as a kind of a protectorate. And because US has a very strict policy against attacking or invading foreign embassies, he was actually pretty safe there. And so what the Nunciature did, they actually put him in a dark room and they gave him a Bible to read, and for 10 days he was just doing that, reading the Bible and doing nothing else. No, my tank is destroyed. No, what I think they actually had an RPG in there somewhere, and that's what killed my beautiful tank. And so while he was there for 10 days, what US did was very, very sneaky. They actually created a helicopter base right next to the embassy because that was not illegal, and that was made, or that was meant to create as much noise as possible. And they were also blasting rock music and a lot of, you know, psyops kind of stuff. Like they would just have announcements, they would have really loud announcements 24/7 until Noriega just went crazy and he just couldn't take it anymore, and he literally just left after 10 days and said, please just, you know, capture me, I don't really care anymore. And it was a pretty interesting way of capturing him without really killing anyone. Now he did have a lot of security forces that were attacked by the US Navy forces, and the Navy SEALs, I believe, actually did manage to destroy his private airplane, his private boat. There's like a unit right next to you. There's a unit right next to you. But anyway, so yeah, despite all of the destruction that they caused, his capture was actually relatively peaceful. He basically just surrendered because he couldn't take the psychological torture anymore. So I thought it was a pretty cool story, because you don't really hear that very often, where someone just kind of, you know, gets captured in such a strange and unusual way. Now we're going to reload these guys and send them to the front lines again. They're going to be using their both of their heat ammunition and also their amazing shillelagh. I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. Shillelagh anti-tank guided missiles for destruction. I do believe I have a Delta forces here somewhere. I think that's them. We're going to launch them and place them in this location right here, and then try to destroy the enemy HQ unit. But yeah, so overall, this invasion was very overwhelming for the Panamanian forces, because they were undertrained. They didn't really have much in terms of weaponry. There were no tanks, obviously. They may have had some heavy weaponry, but I just couldn't find any information on what they actually had, because the Soviets just arrived there. They actually just arrived like months prior, and as the Soviets arrived, they didn't really bring anything except for advisors. They didn't bring any weaponry, they didn't bring any T-72 tanks, and had there been any T-72 tanks, maybe, just maybe, Panamanian forces would be a little bit more successful. But overall, this would also possibly cause US to use more brutal forces. And what's really unfortunate is that despite the relatively precise strikes that the US used, they still ended up damaging and destroying quite a lot of civilian targets. And as a matter of fact, something like 500 civilians were actually killed in this invasion, which cost US a lot of money because they had to reimburse a lot of people afterwards. And a lot of the damage was caused by both airplane attacks and various missile attacks from the airplanes and from the helicopters, obviously. And so this wasn't as precise and as successful as US hoped it would be. Hey, look at that, there's a unit right there. Attack him with my aircraft. Raven, go, go, go. Raven. Oh, wait, tank destroyed him. All right, that's good. So we're gonna try to find someone in that region and hopefully get to use our Raven aircraft for some kind of a missile attack. And we might as well start attacking actively. There's no point of waiting. I'm sure they have units hidden in these houses, but we don't care. We're also going to unload, I think this is my infantry force. I hear rockets. Rockets are coming from somewhere. Oh, look at that. They're trying to destroy my tanks using rockets, and they're being very successful. Holy crap. They had a really interesting RPG unit hidden right here that just destroyed 2 of the Sheridan tanks, which is something I should have known that would happen. I should have anticipated in advance, but that's okay. We don't really we don't mind losing a few units. It's more fair that way too. Now, RMIQ is here. There they are. And oh, that's the Marine Force. Oh my God, that's the Marine Force. Marines are gonna do just fine against those units. There's a lot of battling going on here. Let's actually just zoom in here, because that's probably the cool part. Here comes the Humvee. Like I mentioned before, this was the first battle that Humvees actually experienced. The second battle was obviously the invasion of Iraq, which happened just a year after that. But the first battle was here in Panama. Anyway, so let's actually just start attacking and try to eliminate as many of the enemy targets as we can. And in terms of the actual invasion, this was a pretty successful invasion, but obviously it was actually opposed by most of the countries, including many of South American countries. As a result of this invasion, Peru actually withdrew their ambassador from the US because they thought it was illegal, and they were actually kind of right, because the justification for this invasion was very, very, very trivial. The US forces were really not in any danger from the Panamanian forces. As a matter of fact, the US forces that were in Panama would actually quite easily overpower Panamanian forces, probably. And so the reality was that it was more of an economic reason that, US wanted to have full control over Panama Canal. They didn't want to experience any kind of problems, any kind of taxation or anything else that Panama may decide to do. And of course, because for a silly reason, Noriega decided to support the... Oh boy, what is going on in here? Okay, there's definitely a unit hiding somewhere over here. Yeah, because Noriega decided to support the Soviets, and that was probably a very stupid thing to do. He was just getting really greedy. He was getting money from the drug cartels, he was getting money from the CIA, and I think he wanted to get more money from the Soviets as well, because Soviets were known for financially supporting various factions that were trying to oppose the Americans. And so because of his greed, he essentially, not only did he get arrested and deposed, but he spends pretty much his entire time since in jail. And what's interesting is that he got prosecuted and he got convicted to drug smuggling and money laundering in the US, and he actually spends something like 17 years in jail in Florida. But what's really interesting is that because he was technically a prisoner of war, he actually had a really nice cell, like a private cell with a lot of electronics in there, his own private exercise room. So he was actually living a good life in his jail. But after his jail time in Florida was finished, France actually asked to extradite him as well. And in France, for about a year, he was in a really... That was a really nice shot, holy cow. He was in a really crappy jail. He actually spent actual jail time in France. And after that, Panama actually extradited him as well. And when he was extradited to Panama, he was imprisoned for 20, or he was convicted for 20 more years, where he still is right now. And he's actually getting really sick, really old, and according to some sources, he became a born-again Christian, and he was, you know, a new person and so on, and that's why he was released from a US jail a little bit earlier. But many people still don't believe that it's true, and many people still think that he's unchanged, and he still has a lot of money hidden somewhere, and will most likely use all of this money for some other unknown and possibly a bad thing. But anyway, we're not going to judge him for who he was or for who he is right now. We are just going to try to finish this mission and finally invade Panama. This actually kind of looks like Panama too. This is may actually resemble a port somewhere in Panama. Hey, here, I think I found them. No, that was something else. Come on, Delta Forces, you can do better than that. Find the target and destroy them. Oh, that's it. Isn't that it? Oh, there's one more. Darn it. Okay, I'm gonna use my Apache helicopters for the final strike at the enemy target, just to make this a little bit cooler and also a little bit faster. And here come the Apache helicopters. I think I've lost possibly something like 4 or 5 Sheridan tanks. This one looks really, really broken. Actually, you can see the repair icon blinking. That's because they took some damage. But surprisingly, they survived a direct strike from an RPG, which is actually very unusual because these tanks were not particularly good at resisting RPG attacks. So let's just use the helicopters here to try to defeat the last targets. And I believe there's just there's possibly one more target somewhere in this area hiding, and this will definitely give us the victory. And right before we finish this mission, as my Apache do their job, I just wanted to thank you for watching, and oh, here we go, we won. That was the last unit. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you still haven't, and share this video with someone who you think may enjoy learning more about various wars, various missions around the world, and various tanks and how they influence the world. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video. Game you later, and bye-bye.